welcome to Parashas Emor. I'm Rabbi Katz. Alright, let's go. The name of the article, for all of you following along from the website, the article is posted. It is entitled, My Pen Pal the Ger, by yours truly, Rabbi Katz. Alright, what are we talking about? There are several key topics that we're going to go over in the flow of the article. Number one, the nature of the article. It is written as if the redemption came. It's not clear from the article, that's irrelevant. Around 2015, Moshiach came. And John is the subject of the article, the fictitious John. He's in Jerusalem, getting ready for Shavuos, and his friend Rabbi Katz is a Kohen, a priest in the third final built temple, Ezekiel's temple. Right? Rabbi Katz works there, Parasha. And John is there, checked in the King David Hotel, and he's writing a letter that describes the topics of the Parasha. All right, so that's the flow of the article. Then our character John, and I kind of like this theme, by the way. It was fun writing this article. It was different from the other ones. That's obvious. It doesn't need to be said, but I liked it. And feel free to comment and let me know what you think too. I'm not against writing fun articles to prove the point. It lowers the vernacular and vocabulary on a very simple level we can all relate to. I think that's a big plus. It's easier to write. It's fun. It flows. I think we should do stuff like this and just be a little bit more out of the box and making it easily accessible to everybody. Let me know. But the point is, John is going to go through Parashas Emor, and he is experiencing the holidays of the year. Because the Parasha goes through all the holidays, he is going to have an offering bringing to the third temple. The Parasha goes into the offerings of the Kohanim, correct? And the Gerim are mentioned with that. Okay? We have meat. The Kohen, priest, he is working with meat. Therefore, our friend John is going to be working with Rabbi Katz because of the famous mitzvah that when there is a non-kosher meat, the Kohen, or not just the Kohen, anybody, would give that meat to the Ger or sell it to the Gentile, the Noahide. So we'll go into that. And the 7 laws, we all know the blasphemer, right? In the end of the Parasha, the kid who is the product of a Jewish woman and Egyptian man is blaspheming, he's in trouble, he's dead. And if you look carefully in that passage, you'll see the 7 laws are very, very well, in a concise way, articulated there, and it's very nice. And there's a nice revelation we'll bring out about how the laws go from judgment to mercy through the path of the Ger. And we'll close with just an understanding of the Messianic age. And if you read the article, Iran does tshuva. I don't know that to be true, obviously, but it certainly made for an interesting article. And you can read it. You'll be able to read about it on Depka after they report every other nonsense news item. So let's go. Okay, number 1, Messiah Ger and the Ger. Where this is a theme that we've covered, I think, 2 weeks in a row now. I believe, I think so. And whatever it is, we're covering it again. The idea is that in the Messianic age, the Ger will be a major player. I mean, in that the whole world should become Ger. Well, how do I know that? First of all, what makes a Ger Toshav, period? Right? A Noahide that has a element of being represented in the land of Israel. What makes that happen? For everybody that tells you there's no Ger Toshav today, it doesn't exist, we don't have it, they're just Noahides, this based in says they're Gary, all kind of strange concoctions. What do we do with these Noahides? Right? Do they keep their 7, go to heaven? Are they some kind of Ger? Are they even a Ger Toshav? What is a Ger Tzedek? Right? All these questions really are the fallout of one major question. When do we have the Ger Toshav really? And the answer is always simple. Rambam, Suri Bia 14:8 is the easiest to find. When the Jubilee year comes, they're not the one we're having this year in Jerusalem with some kind of zach. That's not it. The main one, Messiah, temple, out of exile, Iran did tshuva, Obama came out as a closet Noahide, all these things, who knows what will happen. But when the world ends and the new world begins and the Messianic age is delivered, the Gerim of the world will be able to go to the Sanhedrin, Beis Din, and be represented as a Noahide, aka Ger Toshav. You can read about it in Avodah Zarah 64b, right? The three opinions. What is a Ger Toshav in Hebrew? Ezu Ger Toshav. Three opinions. Number one, a former idolater who has rejected idolatry, he is a Ger Toshav. Number two, a regular as we know him Noahide. 7 laws of Noah. 3, a Noahide rejected idolatry, and he has taken on the entire Torah, except for what we're talking about in our Parasha, in that he eats non-kosher meat. The 3 opinions. When the Messianic age comes, everybody in the world will have the opportunity to become a Ger Toshav, and of course will be mandated at least the 7 laws of Noah, even without Ger. And you'll say, well then what's the difference? You just said a Noahide is a Ger. The difference is the title of Ger Toshav is an extra merit should he wish to live in the land of Israel, take on more mitzvot, mingle with Jewish people, and remain the integrity of a Noahide without, let's say, assimilation, intermarriage, all these things. Thus, in the Messianic age, the Gerim will become official. They say, but in the Messianic age, Rabbi, I heard that we will not be accepting converts. That is correct. For whatever that's worth. I'm not even sure what context to take with that. Ger here obviously is meaning non-Jew. Thus, there will not be an influx. Messiah came, the world is now Jewish. What we will have, and this is prophesied by, the Rambam reports the prophecy, the Lubavitcher Rebbe quotes the Rambam, the world will one day be Ger Toshav, entirely. Okay. Our good friend John. John is in Jerusalem from Idaho. John is a Ger Toshav, living abroad, showing how you can be a Ger Toshav anywhere in the world and still coming to Jerusalem for the holidays and for the experience of Jerusalem. This would be an ideal setting that we'll see in the future. Right? The Jews, let's say, are in the land of Israel. The temple's built. Ezekiel's prophesied 3rd temple on the Temple Mount. Miracles came. Moshiach came. The world is Ger. And there's a rotating cycle of the non-Jew coming to Israel. Life goes on. But the 3rd temple is the center of everything in the world. Commerce, economy. Just, it's the engine that makes everything go round. But in a truthful way. Right? The economy would be fixed by Torah law, the offerings that are poorly slaughtered will become what's called nevela, the carcass. That becomes a meat industry. Eventually, the world becomes holy, but in the way that we live in the world. So nothing becomes super fantastic as the Rambam reports. Life is the same, but eventually it just becomes holy, and the temple and Torah become infused with every aspect of life. And for those familiar with Talmudic law, the Torah / Talmud is meant and built to be the way of a holy life. That it discusses its influence on every sector of life. Now, Ezekiel's temple is a really interesting topic. The book of Ezekiel is in Tanakh, and it represents a lot of areas of law through Scripture that seem contradictory to what we know to be normative Torah foundational principles. A lot of people have taken issue. Some have argued, what is the intention of Ezekiel's prophecy. What we do know is if we look at the life of King David, everyone says that King David was a scholar, an expert, prophet, inspired, psalms, warrior, king, passionately in love with God, you name it. Chased by King Saul, chased by Doeg, chased by Achitophel. And we say that King David was a scholar such that the halacha, the law, is always like King David. And yet somehow in this circus, David is pursued. In Psalms, he calls himself a Ger because he doesn't fit the mold of what the rest of the world would like him to be. And we accept that David was a rejected scholar. But it doesn't quite add up. You have the king of Israel, who at the peak of Israel's fame, and that it ever was in history, right? His son, King Solomon, is going to take the throne, and there will be some level of world peace such that Israel never experienced except for the time of David and Solomon. So this is not one of your wicked kings of Judah. This is King David. And we know that he's harassed and chased and bothered. So what was it that was really the problem? If you look at Ezekiel's, as we mentioned, Ezekiel's temple, it contradicts the norm, Yiddishkeit. We know that King David was a great prophet. We know that King David wanted to build the third temple, i.e. the essential temple. One can make a very solid argument that the matter that really upset people the most is if David yearned to build the third temple, or the temple, there's no temple yet. But if it's going to be the eternal house, which is called the house of prayer, and a universal house of mankind, if King David sees the universal message of the temple, and that's what he desires to build, you can easily see that the traditional folk would not be endorsing that temple of David. Like, that's where we can draw the line and say, okay, look, you're the king of Israel, you do all this stuff, but come on, non-Jews coming in the temple and a house of prayer for all, and I think you missed the boat, right? You might be the king, but you're crazy, and it's going to get destroyed when you bring the nations in, and that's not what we want. We are against you. King David would have understood the nature of that temple, what the true message of the priest is, and the Levite, and the judge, and the prophet. The whole infrastructure, King David threatened to rewrite the entire infrastructure as they knew it. So you have the Erev Rav mentality, Doeg Achitophel, saying, you cannot destroy Yiddishkeit. David's saying, we're bringing the Messianic light in. Israel was meant to be hosting to the nations. You know, we can see how that conflict would have occurred. So David runs for his life, and no one likes him. And but you read Psalms, everyone, the Goyim, the Amim, the Umos, the nations this, the nations that. Solomon, you have to be with the nations in Psalm 72. You have to, all the time. He is universal. And yet back home in the homeland, in a budding Jewish nation that's going to, in just its infancy compared to where we are today, you can see that the universal message, just as much as it hasn't happened yet, the roots of it not happening were there. And David was the contradiction. Thus, the Messianic program is none other than Messiah, son of David. And what does Hashem say? You may not build the temple, you have blood on your hands. For if David's temple would have been built, there would have been blood. I mean, maybe not literally, but the scholars, it just spheres the kalim, the breaking of the vessels. It's oil and water. It doesn't go. It's like either I win, you all lose, or we don't do this. And God said, all right, we don't do this. And that's what happened. The nation had to have an opportunity to develop and blossom and grow, very similar to Moses not being allowed in the land to build a temple. A bit of a different reason, right? They say that Moses would have been on the level that the people never could have attained to. Well, here, it's not so much David's level that was the stumbling block. It was that he asked them to change their level, or to change more of a lateral shift than, let's say, a growth in holiness. David's saying, let's get rid of the old operating system, change software, upgrade, and get on with the show. And they were not ready to do that, and God agreed. So the setting of the article is, as I wrote, this is not a misprint, May 8th, 2019, in Jerusalem, Ezekiel's temple built on Mount Zion. Point being, in the future, we will encounter a messianic age, a Messiah, a Ger latent world, Ezekiel's temple standing on the eternal Temple Mount as we've always known it to be, only with Ezekiel's temple shining forth. And it'll be a universal house of prayer for all, yada, yada, yada. Okay, our good friend John is excited that he's here for Shavuos, and he's telling Rabbi Katz of the article, the Cohen in the temple, all about his holidays. Now, if we read the Zohar in particular places, the word in Hebrew that basically defines the Shabbos experience in the most accurate sense is the word menucha and yaniach. Yaniach means to settle. And you're probably thinking, yaniach sounds like Noah. Noach. Rashi makes mention, Noach does not come from the word menachem, to comfort, even though they're similar. And you can make a drasha, inference, but Noah comes from the concept to ease the toil of our labor. Thus, Noah in his time, that's what made Noah great. The invention of the plow and farming equipment, he brought forth easing the toil of labor by the world. Thus, the Zohar says Noah's representation of the Jewish year is Shabbos, right? Yaniach, Shabbos, Noach. Then you have all of the pairs of animals and the days and the purity, 2s and 7s. To which the Zohar says the 2s are 2-day holidays, Rosh Hashanah and Shavuos. When you're outside the land, Shavuos is 2 days. And also Rosh Hashanah outside the land is 2 days. The 7s obviously are Passover and Sukkot. And what you have is the story of Noah is the basis, let's say, pre-Israel root of the Jewish year takes place in the Parasha of Noah and the story of Noah, and the vessels lended to the story, i.e. the name of Noah and the numbers, they yield kind of a pattern of the Jewish holidays. Now, when you go through Emor, and the Zohar is brilliant on this piece, that you see the entire Jewish year is represented in our Parsha. It's really nice. You get mentionings of Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Passover, Shavuos, the Omer. And then when the story's over, it mentions right away, like literally right away, the menorah and the showbread. Now, I don't think you have to be a rocket scientist to understand the menorah, Hanukkah, right? I think that's pretty obvious. The showbread's another story. The only holiday missing from the flow is Purim. Now, what does the showbread represent? Hashem's face revealed and sustenance through the temple next to the menorah. And Purim is actually the concealment of God's face and providence and sustenance. Thus we have the showbread mention. It makes a very nice analogous representation of Purim. What's interesting about Purim is that in all the holidays actually, And all the holidays that we have, the Ger, here we go. The Ger is always is through the entire tradition and Torah and verses we have. The Ger is synonymous with the holidays. For example, Rosh Hashanah, right? God judges the whole world. Gerim, yes. Yom Kippur, it was in Parashas Achremot, that's right. The Ger is mentioned in Yom Kippur and in the davening prayers in Kol Nidre, the Ger is invited to come. Okay, that's two. Sukkot, famous story about the Gerim and the Sukkah, that's the one holiday they keep, that's three. The menorah, I mean, that's pretty obvious, isn't it? 7 branches, 7 laws, the whole story, okay? Purim, Rashi makes mention that in Purim, there was something called the Nilvim, the attachments that came out with Israel. And Rashi says these attached souls to Israel are Gerim, and the Gerim are actually part of the mitzvah of Purim. And when you look at all the writings of Purim throughout Chazal, there's a lot of Ger references, some overt, some covert, some hidden, some revealed, but there's a lot of undertones of Gerim all through the Purim story. In fact, there's a type of Ger called Gerim Avraham, or Gerim Mordechai Esther. What they are is that when everybody sees the greatness of the redemption, everyone says, hey, look at that, Israel got redeemed, I'm with Israel, it's all good, I'm going out with them. They were the Novim. And to prevent that from happening in the future, obviously the converts will not happen, and Gerim will be on this level, because when Moshiach comes, goes without saying, it's going to be pretty awesome. Okay, now you have the Passover. If you're circumcised, eat the Korban Pesach. If you're not circumcised, all of the improperly slaughtered animals will be by the mitzvah to sustain the ger, given to the ger, sold to the nachri. And that is basically the Jewish year. And Shabbat, as we know, 10 Commandments, the ger, and also Parashas Mishpatim, another ger reference. It's a question, which one is either Ger Tzedek or Ger Toshav? One says the 10 Commandments is Ger Tzedek. The Ramban says the 10 Commandments is Ger Toshav, and the other location in Parashas Mishpatim, they just flip. So there's more than one reason why a ger would keep Shabbos, and just for location's sake, Krisis 9a, Ger Toshav keeps a particular type of Shabbos. Now, everybody would love to just quote me on this. You know, I've heard all the stories. Let's get this straight. When I say that a ger keeps Shabbos, and they'll say, but not like a Jew, Rabbi Katz says like a Jew. Rabbi Katz never said like a Jew. Somebody else said that. Rabbi Katz never said that. Rabbi Katz said that he keeps a Shabbos like a Jew. That does not mean exactly like a Jew. The Talmud Krisis 9a states the 3 ways he keeps the Shabbat. 1, like a mundane day. 2, like a Chol Moed intermediate day. 3, like a holiday non-Shabbos day. Meaning there are 3 different ways that the ger will come to do a malacha, creative work, thus breaking the Shabbat. Now, a lot of people will say, but he can break it one way, he pulls a hair out, he keeps it like a Jew, but he breaks it one way. That does not exist as far as I know. Krisis 9a says exactly what to do, and that is not one of the ways. That's what is the party line. Okay, now, there are instances where he is expected to keep it like a Jew in the presence of a Jew. For example, John the Ger is in my house on Saturday morning for Shabbos, and he is not bound by malacha according to the Torah, let's say, and he wants to use my microwave to heat up a hot dog. And my 5-year-old son is watching and says, Abba, is it true we can heat up a hot dog on Shabbos? I say, no. Why would you think that? And he wouldn't think that, because John would know that when we're all congregating together, the malachas must be kept like a Jew. 100%. Now, when John goes to his room for a nap, if he wants to listen to his iPod, cook a hot dog, and sing hallelujah, he may do so. Another context that he doesn't keep Shabbos like a Jew is that we don't want him to do malacha or work for a Jew, right? Hey, John, go turn on my light. I need the light on, right? You cannot hire the Ger Toshav to do your labor for you because you are forbidden to it and you make him do it. Thus, the time that John is in the presence of the Jew, now, let's say that they are not sleeping for some reason, 24 hours in the same room, this Ger Toshav will not be doing malacha, right? Because he is keeping the sanctity with the Jew. It is then advised that he have his own quarters, his own way, and you partake of Creasus 9a. But when in the vicinity of a Jew, he does not work for the Jew then does not command the non-Jew to work for him, and in the presence together for the sanctity of Shabbos, all laws of Shabbos are kept. Thus, by definition, the Ger Toshav does not keep an exact Jewish Shabbat. But it is improper to say he does not keep it like a Jew. Now, we have to know the difference. To say keeping it like a Jew does not mean in all extent. The principles are the same, but there are ways that he does malacha to get out of not doing malacha the entire Shabbos. It's tricky, and the language is a little bit whatever, but that's the way it's brought down. It's more incorrect to say he keeps it entirely not like a Jew than to say he keeps the Jewish Shabbos with exception. I think that's the more accurate way. It is more confusing and misleading even, but more accurate. And I think the Ger needs to know the method of keeping the Shabbos so as to keep it the way it's supposed to be done, rather than apologizing and changing the delivery to make the Jewish guy feel more comfortable, but yet confusing the Ger, right? So the Ger need to know how to keep Shabbos. The Korban. This was very interesting. If you look in Vayikra, the first chapter, they learn that the Gerim bring offerings to the temple. Even Akum, right? Even Mamish, an idolater, can bring an offering. So here we have the Ger in the verse, in the Parasha. He brings an offering, and it has to be bli mum, right? He cannot have a blemish in the animal, just like a Jew, right? So you can't bring a blemished animal for the offering. And John, in our article, is excited because he came to Jerusalem to work on the economy of Jerusalem. When you go to Jerusalem in, let's say, temple era days, the goal of going to the temple is an all-inclusive endeavor. You're going to bring your offerings. You're going to put money in Jerusalem, buying artistry, food, supporting the city, and Jerusalem becomes a merkaz, a center. And then that bleeds all throughout Israel. Israel then churns, okay? We have to send supplies to Jerusalem to maintain the presence coming in and the engines running. The offerings are going around the temple. The priests are serving the temple. Everyone's job is in action. And the whole world coming and pushing this to Jerusalem is essential. That's what makes the whole world go around micro, macro. Thus, John is coming to give the offering, and it has to have no blemish. The Nachri, this is also pointed out in the Parsha. The Nachri, the non-Jew, literally, he is not Jewish, not Ger, nothing. The Nachri is, I think, defined, best I've seen it, he might be in the church, but he's having second thoughts about the church doctrine. He's got one foot out the door. He's a closet case on the internet at night researching Judaism and Torah. All right, he has second thoughts on his avodah zarah idolatry. So he is flirting with his Ger friends and his Jewish friends, right? So that's why he's in the picture. Now that guy, he can bring an offering, and he probably wants to, right? That's one of his closet ideas. He wants to be a part of the temple and the whole story. His animal can have a blemish, but it must not be missing a limb. So it's a lesser standard, but yet he can still bring it and it accomplishes. The best part is, so let me get this straight, right? I sin, I gotta bring an offering, and it's this archaic system of slaughtering and blood and some twisted, morbid barbecue. That's what people think. Don't view the temple and the offerings and the this and the that as an archaic vision, right? In our article, Moshiach came in 2019. So when Moshiach does come, the world you see, that's the world Moshiach's going to live in. If you have an iPhone, you're still going to have an iPhone. Or whatever it is. I'm guessing if you were in Israel on Tuesday, you probably had a barbecue for Yom HaAtzmaut. And I'm guessing if you live in America, you probably have barbecue at different functions of your life. Barbecue is just one way of cooking food to eat it. The temple prescribes barbecue. The priests there are working, they offer up on the altar certain fats and this and that, but not for all the offerings, but for some. Part of the ceremony is you sit down, have a meal, he who brought the offering and the priests, and guess what? It's called real life. They were talking and sharing and enjoying and blessing and bringing light to the world. It's called simcha. The offering is charity, tzedakah, right? When you broke Shabbos 5 Shabbases ago and no one saw you, you did a sin. Nobody's going to come and know that you did that sin. Nobody. Right? You had no witnesses, no warning. You know what you did. It's between you and God. Now the Torah says when you sin, you bring the offering. Well, how do you know you sin? Maybe the rabbi will say, I didn't sin. So if you are a Yireh Shamayim, fearing God soul, A, you'll recognize the sin or research if you did the sin. You will then plan on coming to Jerusalem, wherever you are, to bring that offering to the temple. What are you achieving? Again, you are bringing the surplus to Jerusalem. You're making the temple run. It's a charitable act. And you bring it, you atone for your sin. During the offering, you get revelation. That's why they call it Torah Chatas, Torah Mincha. It's all called the Torah of. So as they're shechting the animal, all of the things, the Levites are playing guitar, the Kohanim are doing their thing, you're watching the Ozach, you're in awe of the Shekhinah in the temple, you are getting revelation. This is about turning judgment into a merciful act. You are getting revelation of God. So you're going to go back to Idaho with God in your mind, bringing holiness in the world. So what? Do you sin on purpose? No. But if you do sin, you get a chance to repair it, fix it, and grow from it. When you do tshuva, repent, every sin becomes a mitzvah. Now, this guy is lazy. He says, no one saw me sin, I don't want to do it. Guess what happens to him? Nothing. In the next world or in judgment, he'll have his cheshbon with God, and he'll take it up in the basin Shamala, and he'll deal with it. Right? If he is guilty, it'll come out of his account. If he's not, or whatever, or if he doesn't want to research the sin, hey, how do I know it was a sin? Maybe I didn't commit a sin. Okay, we don't know. What you're saying is, I don't want to be bothered with an offering, Jerusalem, eating meat, having a good time, and you have that right. Unless you have witnesses and warnings saying, hey, you did a sin and we're going to kill you unless you go repair it. But, assuming that no one knows, he is negating himself of a tremendous opportunity to get close to God. What does the word korban mean? Karov, to come close, to come together. That's the korban. When you sin, it's a miracle. In that, the repair of the sin is all the elements get to come together. The meat, the trip to Jerusalem, all of it comes to a culmination on the altar, goes up to fire and smoke, and you get revelation, repair, tshuva, merit, bracha, the whole 9 yards. That's what an offering means, literally. Karban, to bring close or together. Thus, he who denies himself repentance, all of the things that draw together, the revelation, Jerusalem, relationship with the priest in the temple, non-existent. That's why it's a charitable act to do it in a very worthy cause. The temple is a part of life, and it is meant to be an active part of our life. We are missing the temple from our world today. When we have the temple, the world will just work better. So no, you won't want to sin more. What you'll do is you'll be inspired to learn more so you don't sin. Because if you do sin, now you gain knowledge, right? You say, wow, I didn't know that. So all the time, it's an improvement of character when you take that seriously. To deny it is a lack of the fear of God, and all the more so you're probably not going to learn how to prevent it next time. So it's really the seed parts for those two individuals. The Ger Toshav world that we'll have will endorse and inspire that temple reality. Now we mentioned what happens to the improperly slaughtered animals, called nevela, a carcass. The nevela is given to the ger and sold to the Gentiles, i.e. Nachri. And we mentioned that a Ger Toshav takes on the entire Torah except for eating kosher meat. For this reason, meat is the lowest common denominator that we all have in common. Sorry with As far as I know, everybody eats food. I think that's a human condition, right? So this one eats tofu, this one eats fish, this one eats bread. We all have our things that we eat. But the Torah is saying meat is a very interesting food, right? We all, unless you were born a vegan and this and that, but we all understand meat as a concept. So meat is really a special concept that we have. It's our flesh, the animals we live with. Everybody understands imagery and concept of meat. It's gross, it's blood, it's this, but it's also a barbecue and sustenance and food and major world industry. Thus, all the animals we have in the temple, right, the poorly shechted animals, will eventually, the puzzle ones, the not kosher, will be given to Gerim. Now, in a thriving temple reality, and with a strict level of kashrus, right, the very strict demands of shechting, there's going to be a lot of nevela given to the ger. And that's the mitzvah to sustain the ger, mitzvah l'chiyuso, charitable act of Israel to support gerim. You can imagine the industry coming out of that temple, pushing out nevela every day, gerim taking it, right? Also selling to the nachri. All of that holy meat. It's not technically holy, but it's like you're saying to the guy, look, this came from the temple. Going out into the world understanding what this is, right? Lahavdil, it's like when you go to the money reserves when you're a kid, you buy the shredded, $1 million bills or whatever, It's like this bag is shredded $100,000. You're like, it's okay, it's not $100,000, but it was authentic money at one point. So then what you're doing is like breathing. You're infusing all that energy for the temple to collapse on Jerusalem again, holiday time, then expand, contract. It's a living organism. The meat pushes it out. That's, a practical world relationship of the Jew and the Ger. And the Noahide. And then it's the basis of the mitzvahs and their dialogue in the mitzvah to give vitality to the Ger. It's the lowest common denominator. We have what's in common. Just a mindset, right? To receive wisdom, you must be in a particular state of mind. So to receive it, how do we get aligned on the same page so I can get you and you get me? If we think meat, but not literally, but just get on the same page, right? I know what it's like to eat a hamburger steak. This guy knows what it's like. We have a rapport. So you're not saying like, hey, you know what it's like when you wear it to Finland? And he says, you know what it's like on Friday night when I drink beer watching the football game? They're not going to hit it off too good. But if you have a lowest common denominator, right? Food, meat, it's just meat, potatoes, Everybody knows that, even the vegan, just by association. So this whole base of meat dish and the holiness, the offerings, and industry and working together, it's a really roll up the sleeves working relationship between the Ger and the Jew. I think that's pretty self-explained. A very interesting thing in the Parasha, though, and this is from Ger, there's your question, why is the Kohen told that he shouldn't eat treif meat to ritually contaminate himself? Why would you assume that? So here's the answer. First of all, there are chickens that are kosher birds and improperly shechted. You may not eat it, but if you do, it is not making you impure. Okay? It's like the concept of eating a kosher nevela bird does not impurify you. What it does do is, as you're eating it and you swallow it and it hits your throat, it makes your throat impure. I mean, when you're dealing with the carcass, it doesn't impurify you as you're eating it. The action of eating is not the impurifying agent. It's the passage through a place that impurifies you. Should you become impurified by that way, you may not eat of the holy food, truma, and serve and all these things. Why is he eating this stuff? Either he made a mistake, but think about it. This Cohen is giving out nevela all the time to non-Jews. What happens when he accidentally eats the nevela chicken instead of the shechted chicken? Because we're pumping out meat all the time. All the time. Right? And I got confused. I thought I ate the shechted bird. I ate the treif bird. Or the nevela bird. So they would say, okay, it was forbidden what you did. It's forbidden to eat that bird, but you should also know you are impure when it passed through your gullet. It is impure, and you may not partake of the holy food tonight. Right? That's one example. I'm sure there's probably other scenarios, but the idea is that it's an issue for priests, particularly because their association with the meat industry. Okay, the last case we had in the Parasha, the blasphemer child, a product of an Israelite woman, an Egyptian man. He blasphemed, and they were going to kill him. Read those verses, right? Read those verses. If you look inside, you can see all 7 laws. He used the name and cursed. Blasphemy, idolatry, right? He's turning God into something he's not. 2, make a court of law. 3, eating the limb of a live animal, right? This whole thing was about the lustful relationship. Right? She was of lust, and you see the kids of lust. 4. Don't murder, right? Don't strike a man mortally. The guy is stealing Torah knowledge to curse. 6. What am I missing here? Adultery, right? 7. Right? She hooked up in impure stuff. Okay. So you see that whole case is really a very compact Noahide law thing. If you look in the Talmud Sanhedrin, by the way, the whole discussion of why does Sanhedrin get into the Noahide laws as a famous source? Because of the blasphemer. The whole discussion is he who blasphemes and he's not Jewish. What's the law? I can't remember Halakha L'Maisa, so don't quote me on this. But it says in the pasuk, like the Ger, the Ger is like the Ezrach, the native. One Torah will be for them. Now I cannot remember if in Sanhedrin the conclusion was, yes, you kill the non-Jew, non-Ger, just like the Jew for blasphemy. I don't know. I didn't look it up. But look, if you're interested, look it up. It's very interesting. It's like a 2-page discussion in the Talmud, back and forth. What is the nature of blasphemy for the Jew, the Ger, and the literal non-Jew, i.e. Goy? Non-Ger, Nachri, idolater. Does he get killed too for blasphemy? Now, let's just say there is death in concept. That's judgment. And I think actually they learn, if I remember correctly, it's coming to me, they learn from blasphemy that the Noahide laws are capital. Right? It's that same passage. So when it comes to a conclusion, the 7 laws of Noah are capital. Now, the Zohar goes into a very nice piece, and it's Tzukuni Zohar Chadash. The essence of a rabbi, and Torah scholar, and really personified by Noahides, is to take judgment and make it merciful, right? Rabbi, do I get to die if I learn Torah from you for stealing? No. Right? You don't die. So you go up, you meditate, you learn, you look it up, and you say, okay, look, the stealing is actually this and that. The goal is not to see how many non-Jews we can kill in a day. Right? And to say, oh, we died for this, we died for that. On Facebook forums, that's what they love to do. 1,000,000 ways to kill a Gentile for the 7 Noahide laws. Right? Show me a new way we can kill. The Torah way, the Jewish way, the Zohar explains, find mercy. Always. So the more Ger one becomes, he enters into that common Torah law, one law for the Ger and the Ezrach. So, okay, the non-Jew was killed over Sheva Pruta, like a half a penny, but if you look into it and he grows, it becomes Torah law, restitution, pay it back. Obviously, if you murder, you're still killed, and there are those that you do die for, but there are those that you don't die for, and you suffer the consequence of normative Jewish law. All the more so, the more Ger and Ezrach you become, until you even become a Ger Tzedek. Even the non-Jew Ger Tzedek would have Torah law in his favor, when applicable. That's the whole idea of Ger Tzedek, by the way, is that you are Ger Tzedek, one common Torah for all, when you are under the category of the same law as the Jew, right? So the non-Jew has taken on not stealing. So he uses Torah law as his mitzvah modus operandi. But he eats non-kosher meat, like the prescription. Therefore, you will not hold to him the non-kosher meat thing. And if it comes down into whatever it is in the basis of the Noahide laws, then he is governed by the Noahide law. Now, famous teaching by the Vilna Gaon. I'm not into the anti-missionary stuff. That's for Tovia Singer. But this is probably a famous one that you guys hear, whoever's in that world of anti-missionary. That an eye for an eye, right? The Torah says you take an eye for an eye, right? The Torah wants judgment and vengeance. And then that's the sickness of the Torah, and that's why this, right? So everybody knows that that's not true, right? The Torah does not say poke the guy's eye out, but it says you make restitution with money. Famous teaching by the Vilna Gaon. The word for ayin, eyeball, right? Ayin, yud, nun. If you take each letter, one letter up, right? An ayin jacks up to a pei. The yud jacks up to a kaf. And the nun jacks up to a samech. Right? Just if there were an aleph, you'd say bet. If there were a bet, you'd say gimel. So ayin, up one letter each, spells kesef, money. It was never meant to be poke the guy's eye out. It was make restitution for money. It's that same concept of taking judgment and rendering mercy. Okay? You're taking the judgment, making mercy. So eye for an eye, money. You always want the Torah law to come out just and righteous and merciful. Not to rain din and judgment and killing. That's not the Torah. God is merciful. Our job is to find the precedent in absolute truth, the merciful rendering law and judgment. And life in the temple. John is going to come see his friend Rabbi Katz in the temple, serving. And here's what I have to say about that. This past summer, I had the opportunity to go and ascend the Temple Mount with Rabbi Richmond. And I'm up there, and I'm looking around. And obviously, you want to have a profound experience, right? So, okay, I'm taking it in. I'm hearing the whole, all the chanting and yelling from the locals up there. Inhabitants, temporary inhabitants. We're walking around, and I get to the courtyard where the altar was, or should be, right, where there's safe distance. And that's when it hit me. I'm thinking to myself, that's the altar. That's the altar. I mean, think about that. That is the altar. Right? The big dome, that would have been the temple. So there's stuff going on right here. And I'm saying, what is going on right here? How about smoke and fire going up on the altar? And the priests doing their thing with their outfits, and the Nevi'im playing their music, and the offering, the person who's offering is there. And I thought, this is nostalgia. You can hear the echoes, not of this, the Kohen saying, in some kind of lotus position, I am so holy. That's not what you hear. That wasn't life. That wasn't there. Everyone thinks that holiness is this full lotus in Buddhist monk in an ashram. That's not it. What is it is the Kohen, and I'm, the family could be there, the little kid trained to be a Kohen, the guy who's doing barbecue, the non-Jew is here with his brother, and they're going to have a barbecue, and they're getting atonement, revelation of God is coming down. It's called Simcha. What I heard up there were the echoes of Simcha. Have you ever seen pictures of a carnival that's been deserted? Right? You got the Ferris wheel and the teacups and the cotton candy machines empty. Knocked over, cobwebs. And you meditate on that. You say, wow. You can hear the little kids laughing. And the guy is saying, come here, try this ride. And it's just all disheveled and like broken dolls on the floor, as if to say, this used to be awesome. And now it sucks. That's what I had up there. You can hear God saying, look at this. This sucks. There's a mosque up here. They're throwing trash. There's fights and riots. It's the essence of exile. But think back to when it was awesome. It's right here. You can hear the laughter of children playing catch with with their father, and taking a part of the offering and experiencing revelation. But it's life. It's not the ashram. They had conversations. They laughed. They had a good time. Yes, it was Ger Toshav. But the nations are coming through. It's a universal Torah experience and awakening. All right, the guy from Idaho's coming from Idaho. He's going to talk about potatoes. Just kidding. But he's going to talk about life in Idaho. He doesn't live in Jerusalem. He didn't come down from Sfat. He's from Idaho. And the Kohen's going to talk to him like a guy from Idaho. And it's going to be a holy experience, and amazing, in real life, in real reality. And that's what's missing up there. Sukkos David Nofelis, the fallen tent of David. That's how I saw it. There's a lot of names for the temple. This, the house of prayer, the house of that. One of them is David's fallen tent, and that's what I saw. When the third temple of Ezekiel stands and David's tent is erected, you're going to have real simcha, joy in the world. And that's not possible unless the Gerim and universal message is going out together from the Temple Mount, Ezekiel's third prophesied temple. I brought a really cute end-time scenario. Iran does tshuva, and we call it the big scare of 2015. So the idea is that hopefully, as we see the world events happening, the world will get fixed. Right? The Ger is not just the guys from Texas. Right? There are more Gerim than Texas. There are going to be Gerim all over America, Latin America, Africa, Europe, Asia, Australia, and a couple of penguins in Antarctica. The point is, we only think about, literally, no joke, Texas. That's the biggest surplus in the Noahide world pushing out. It just is. Also, there's a movement in Latin America. Beyond that, it's very thin. There's a whole world east that's going to wake up. Imagine a whole of the, how many billion Muslims are going to be Gerim. And I think they're going to be really awesome Gerim. You know, and when you get into the tradition and history, where they came from, it looks like they were Gerim that went off. Also, the Christianity, Gerim that went off. So the root is there. And we need the Messiah, Moshiach, to come and really rally the world to a rally cry to come back to God, come back to the Temple Mount, and it will be worldwide. As the Rambam says, the world will be Ger Toshav. Lubavitcher Rebbe quoted that. It has to be. That is the repair of the world. And you can say it very simply, as the article ends, don't taunt the Ger. And if you're not taunting the Ger, then by definition, you have learned not only to love the Ger, but the Ger teaches you how to love your neighbor as yourself, which is the whole Torah. B'ezrat Hashem, we will all experience the task and an honor of making Gerim, and it should be revealed on the Temple Mount, Ezekiel's temple built, with the Jews and Gerim having a nice barbecue. B'ezrat Hashem, a guy named John from Idaho will be able to partake in this holy event. May it come soon in our day. Moshiach Tzidkenu Mamash B'karov Amenu Amen.